women expected not to go to a place of worship during their periods. Some women in India are apparently taking pills to delay their periods because they're not allowed to worship while they're menstruating. I want you to tell me what it's like over here. Do women in Britain avoid worship because of their periods? Is that you? Is it something that you've been through? Maybe somebody in your family or somebody you know? If that's the case, how do you or them feel about it? Is it humiliating? Is it a bad thing that has no place in the modern world? Or an understandable thing that happens in all faiths, Sikhs, Hindu, Muslims? I want you to tell me what you think. You can WhatsApp me on 07920 500 200. You can email me on thebigdebate@bbc.co.uk, or you can call me on 03459 440 445. Let's start our chat by talking to a guest of mine, Ashish Janawar. Hi, Ashish.
Hello.
Hello. Now, you're from the Swindon Hindu temple, the mandir there. What do you think? Are British Asian women expected not to go to a place of worship during their periods?
Absolutely not at all. There is no such restriction or foundation on any of the devotees anywhere, not only just Swindon. I never heard of anything like this before in the UK, ever. I've lived in Newcastle, London, Birmingham, and Swindon now for the last 7 years. Never heard of such thing. I think what we started the debate with, there is an apparently such thing in India. That itself shows this is an hypothesis. I know the temples in India, like Kamakya temple, where the priests are lady priest, and I never heard of any such thing. My mother herself is a head priest in one of the local temple in my hometown, and I've been seeing her doing all the worships and all the religious ceremonies in all the major festivals since my childhood. Never heard of any such thing.
I'm surprised that you say that you've never heard of any such thing, because when we've discussed it in the past, we've had quite a big response from women saying that they do avoid places of worship, and we're talking about Hindus and other faiths as well.
Avoiding places of worship is different thing, and avoiding going out of the house is different thing. Yes, indeed. In India, it has been a long custom to avoid going out of the house for the ladies when they are going through the menstrual cycle, and the reasons are totally different. The reasons are, so that they get rest during those times. These are the segments of the aspects of life of different era. We cannot challenge or sit now and try to be judgmental about what must be happening, because thousands of years back, ladies used to do all sort of household work, as well as they used to go in the farm and help their family members. So and at that time there was no holiday, there was no Sunday as such, right? So that was the only time period when the body needs rest, and then they used to get some sort of rest from the work and some sort of holiday. Now that notion of getting rest and not going out of the house is a suggestion or an advice that cannot be a foundation. So now if you see in India as well, many friends, cousins, my sisters, everybody who work in metros, and they go to work every day, they do puja, everything, and there is no restriction as such. And the rest was, if that is misunderstood, then that's a totally different thing. But going out of the house and going to religious places, something different.
Thank you. Okay, look, hold on, stay on the line. I want to also bring in another guest, Sonal Sachdev Patel. Hi, Sonal.
Hi, Dale. How are you?
Hi, I'm fine. Thank you very much. So the question this morning I'm asking, are British Asian women expected not to go to a place of worship during their periods? What would you say to that?
Well, I mean, I agree with your first caller that it's an outdated practice. And I think we have to be aware of when certain practices existed because they were appropriate for a certain time, but they're no longer appropriate. So historically, women did a lot of physical work. They didn't get that much rest. And this tradition, I think, is rooted a lot in giving a woman, a few days rest a month. away from all of the duties that she would have, and also the practical aspect of, in those days they didn't necessarily have sanitary towels and all of the things that we have access to go about our modern day lives. But I did want to just make a point with regards to the first caller. I think this does still exist in the British Asian society, and it's important for us to recognise that it exists and then to challenge it. So there have been occasions where I've been told not to go to certain functions at people's homes because I'm on my period. And whilst I thoroughly disagree with it, and I would never ask my daughters when they're at their appropriate age to not go to places, I have respected their beliefs and not gone to the ceremony because, at the end...
Sorry, Sonal, I find that quite shocking that you've been told not to go to people's homes as well.
Yes, because it's usually specific to certain gods or goddesses. So when, for example, people are doing a ceremony to Mataji, that's when specifically they say that women who are on their period can't go. One of the important messages that I'm really trying to talk about a lot, and particularly through our children's book, Gita, the Battle of the Worlds, is that we need to focus on what's going on internally. When we're in a temple, rather than worrying about whether we've got our period or what colour sari we're wearing or what the next person had for their breakfast, we're supposed to go to the mandir, the temple, and look internally. Where are my thoughts? Where are my emotions? We really need to reduce this focus on what's happening on the outside.
Ashish, Sonal says that she's experienced this herself in terms of some of the things that are said to women while they're on their periods. So she's also surprised that you've not heard of it.
Yeah, I completely agree with her. One of the points she made very clearly, saying that she will never say to this next generation. I think these are the misconceptions few people talk about, and what she particularly highlighted the incident about not going to somebody's home. So if we're talking about religious places, I've never heard of such instance where a religious temple has announced saying that people or the ladies on the menstrual cycle cannot come to the temple or do not worship. But yes, there are misconceptions like this, and we need to educate people. We need to tell them, the reasons. This is an out-old sort of concept, and this need not be continued now. And the reasons are, as she mentioned rightly, there are now hygiene options available, sanitary napkins, and so on. And now I think in terms of the workload, what we used to talk about for the ladies 10,000 years back, and now it's totally different, right? Now we have a lot of machinery helping us, so that's totally wrong. If somebody is still, living in that era, we need to educate people on that.
Okay, so this morning I'm asking, are British Asian women expected not to go to a place of worship during their periods? It's because there are reports that in India, some women are taking pills to delay their periods because they're not allowed to go to a place of worship while they're menstruating. I want to know what it's like over here. I want to hear your stories, if it's affected you in any way, or what you think about it. You can call me on 03459 440 445, or you can text 81869. Ashish, let me quickly read a couple of messages that we've already got on. This is Umar on Twitter, says, yes, sadly, it's still the case in British Asian society too. It's a double standard. A criminal, rapist, terrorist can go to a place of worship anytime, but if a woman who's menstruating goes, it's considered a sin. This really needs to change. And this person on WhatsApp says, as a 19-year-old girl who's been born in the UK, the concept of not going to the mandir when I'm on my period has always made me angry, and I've yet to find a plausible reason for it. It may have been literally unclean in the past, but with the developments in hygiene, it's no longer a problem. It's unfair to stop girls and women from participating by making them feel ashamed and guilty that they're going to pollute the ritual, prasad or food. There shouldn't be so much negativity around a perfectly natural part of a woman's reproductive cycle. Very strong feelings there, Sonal, aren't there, about this?
Yeah, I think she articulated herself very well. I totally agree with her, and I think it is dying out because this generation is questioning, why am I being asked to do this? And if the justification can be given, then we'll do it. But if there's no understanding of what the reason is that sits behind cultural practices, then die out.
I want to get a sense, a handle on what the scale of this is. How widespread is it? What would you say, Sonal? Just as a, do you think it's actually a big thing? Is it happening quite a lot right across Britain, or just in
No.
certain pockets and limited to certain groups?
Yeah, I think it's the latter. I think it's limited to certain groups. I've never heard of a temple outwardly announcing it, but then a lot of prejudice and kind of certain practices are never announced. They're embedded in culture. They're sort of whispers within families, and mothers or grandmothers saying you shouldn't be going, and sort of backing up this notion of women being unclean. But then there's the response of younger girls, now challenging what mothers and grandmothers are saying. So I don't think my experience is that it's not hugely widespread. I've seen it, like I said earlier, in certain pockets and in particular ceremonies. But as I said, I certainly won't be continuing it for my children.
And you're saying it's a generational thing, that younger women are challenging and not accepting it.
Yes, that's my experience, definitely.
Mm-hmm. Ashish, have you found that? Is there sort of a generational aspect to where you have heard of it?
Yeah, indeed. I think that's what my mother must have done, being a head priest of the temple. She must have challenged her ancestors, basically saying or challenging why that cannot be done. That's the reason she was allowed to. Now we are training a new batch of the priests in the local temple, and we have few ladies also. And this was one of the questions, saying during which time of the month we are not allowed in the temple doing the worship or anything. And the answer was very clear. As simple as that. Whenever you feel you are comfortable enough physically and mentally to come and do the worship, you are allowed. Suppose I'm a man and I'm not feeling well, I'm having bad cold, high temperature. Am I fit to go and do anything? No. But apart from that, there is no such restriction or anything. I completely understand and agree with basically the younger girl who has just sent the message on the WhatsApp. That's completely ridiculous.
She was very, very strong feelings about it. Felt very angry about
absolutely. Absolutely, and she's very right. I think that is what she has to do. That is what the next generation has to do. They need to challenge the parents, grandparents, or anywhere, whoever is in the society talking about such restrictions or the compulsions, saying what is the scientific background or the reason for such any custom, if at all anybody is talking about.
What were you going to say, Sonal?
So I was just going to say, it also comes down to a question of gender equality. It's saying that men can go to the temple wherever they want, but women, because we menstruate, are unable to go, and we're restricted, and we get told, usually by men, that we can't go. So I think it's more of an issue in India, but I think it's really important that women here even speak out and say, no, the temple is open to everybody, of every gender, every faith, every sexual orientation. Whether we have our period or not, we will decide whether we want to go. If we're not feeling well, then we won't come.
Yeah,
if we're feeling fine,
absolutely.
we will.
Yeah, and if I can just read out again some of the message that we got from Twitter. One person said that a criminal, rapist, terrorist can go to a place of worship anytime, but if a woman is menstruating and goes, it's considered a sin. That does seem to be double standard. So this morning I'm asking, are British Asian women expected not to go to a place of worship during their periods? As I said, some women in India are apparently taking pills to delay their periods because they're not allowed to worship while they're menstruating. I'm asking you, what is the situation here in Britain? Do women here avoid worship because of periods? If that's the case, how do you feel about it? Is it a bad thing? Has no place whatsoever in the modern world, as some of our messages have been saying, or an understandable thing that happens in all faiths, Sikh, Hindu or Muslim. You can call me on 03459 440 445, or you can email at BBC Asian, the big debate at bbc.co.uk. Let me quickly read out some messages some of you have been sharing with us. This texter says, hi there, I think in the past it was frowned upon due to lack of sanitary products to cope with their period. Now we have the means to go to the gym and work when we have our periods. I think it's just backwards and silly if you think you can't engage with God whilst we're going through the most natural thing a woman can do. Plus, would love to hear from a baptised Sikh core as they're expected to pray daily. I want to know what you think. Let's go to Raju Pandya, who's a guest of mine. Raju, good morning.
Good morning to you.
Morning. You're very kind. You're a Hindu priest. What do you think? Are British Asian women expected not to go to a place of worship during their periods?
I think you've got to take this in the right context, right? Right from early days in our religion, women themselves, right, would avoid going to places of worship or ceremonies or religious activities, right?
Because
while they're on their menstrual cycle, right?
Because
and this would be embedded. I'm coming to that. This would be embedded in them through their mums and their grandmothers, right? And what it was in those days, it was understood, and the religion was not meant to demean the women, right, or discriminate against them, but the flowing of the blood, right, we all know can spread disease, right? Whether it's HIV or whatever, and that's the reason, and that's the only reason why while women were on menstrual cycle, were not allowed to go outside. Simple as that, because while they were on their cycle, there's a good chance that if it was not covered up properly and they would start bleeding, it'd be embarrassing, and there's a good chance of spreading disease. And this was based on a scientific reason only.
I'm not sure about that, but let me get Sonal to speak to you. Sonal, what would you say to Raju?
I would say that I don't understand what the present day relevance is of women that are menstruating. When they are menstruating, their blood is not coming into contact with other people that are attending the temple. So the idea that it's spreading infection is not relevant in that context. So what reason is there now that women shouldn't attend the mandir?
Okay, I'll tell you, Sorrel, right? What people have taken this in the wrong way, it doesn't apply to women only. Do you see any men, right, doing garba with a patch on their head, right? Half of it is covered in blood? No. Do you see anyone with their finger sort of cut or bruised and doing the garba? It applies to anyone, not just women, but also men as well, that wherever you're injured, right, wherever there is any blood flowing, there's a chances of spreading disease. So women themselves have taken it upon themselves not to attend. They're not forced. We see many garbas where young white girls go to do the garba. We don't know whether they're on menstrual cycle or not. And even the church says that if you are on your menstrual cycle, do not come to the church.
Let me tell you that, well, two things. Firstly, you've never had a period, so you probably don't know, but it's not like being injured. You know, it's a perfectly natural part of your body that takes place every month. You get really used to it and you carry on with your daily life. And no one else in the country is giving women 3 to 5 days off work on those days because they're not physically able to take part in whatever job it is that they normally do. And the second thing is that the point is that we're not saying that women can self-select. If women say, you know what, I've got really bad back pain, I've got really bad period pain, I don't want to participate in the garba, that's fine. We have no problem with that. What we're discussing today is the idea that she should not be allowed to set foot in a place of worship, you know, where God is. And we're talking about what kind of God wouldn't welcome all people? And so what I'm saying is that it's not God that stops menstruating women from coming into the temple. It's other people, whether it's priests or, you know, grandmothers or mothers, people that are taking this cultural tradition, which was really relevant in that time and it had a really good place thousands of years ago, but it doesn't have a place in our society now. And we should all speak out against it and say, you know, let's not carry on with this practice because it's not relevant anymore.
Well, do they, when you're on period, right, so, and you go to a temple, does the priest examine you and check you whether you're on menstrual or not? Does he?
No, thankfully.
So how do you know? How do you know that people they are living it? The onus is on the people themselves, right? And young people actually do feel the responsibility that it's not a good idea to go to the temple. It's in their own belief, right? They're not being forced like in a very bad way.
Roger,
and young girls will come on a cycle the very first time, sometimes either through carelessness or negligence, may not be able to cover themselves up properly.
Roger, can I ask you, things like when you said that there's a possibility of risk of HIV, I mean, how, do you check drug addicts who come into a temple? Not really, and there's more possibly.
exactly.
I mean, it could be arguably said that there's more chance there, just because they often can fall victim to sort of like getting HIV through infected needles and things like that.